The state of Washington was so named in honor of the father of the United States of America, so it seems only fitting that it would be home to the granddaddy of all urban legends. In fact, there is enough strange, haunted happenings to fill an entire bookshelf. From curse-wielding serial killers to UFOs of Mount Rainier, there is enough to entice any seeker of the paranormal in the Evergreen State, and today we will look at 10 of these. Jake Bird was born in Louisiana in 1901. His troubled life forced him to leave at 19 and seek his fortune riding the rails of America. You guessed it, Bird was your typical hobo, sneaking onto train cars, hopping off at each town to trade a day's work for a night's sleep and a warm meal before hopping back on another train to do it again. Bird was ordinary and didn't really stand out. That was until he reached Tacoma, the city of destiny, when everything changed for him. On October 30th, 1947, while looking for work, Bird came across Bertha Clutt and her daughter Beverly June's home. He entered the home and hacked them both to death with an axe. Their screams alarmed the neighbors, who called the police. The two officers who arrived at the scene found Bird holding the knife, covered in blood. When the police cornered Bird, he attacked, slashing one officer in the hand and stabbing the other in the shoulder. Despite their injuries, they managed to tackle Bird and get him handcuffed. He was taken first to the hospital for his injuries, then delivered in shackles to the old City Hall jail. It is reported that Bird almost had the officers convinced he was innocent, but because they found brain matter still on him, they were convinced they had their man. Bird finally confessed to the murder, stating that it was a robbery gone wrong. He was tried 1 month later and convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to hang. Although big news at the time, the double murder would have soon been forgotten. But it wasn't. Bird's story was only just starting. During Bird's sentencing, he declared, "I'm putting the hex of Jake Bird on all of you who had anything to do with my being punished. Mark my words, you will die before I do." Bird's hex didn't get much notice at the time. It was taken as an idle threat, that is, until people actually started dying. First, the judge who sentenced Bird died of a heart attack, followed shortly by Bird's defense attorney, the police officer who recorded his confession, and the police officer who wrote the official report, all dying of heart attacks. Finally, the court's clerk died from pneumonia. While still on death row at Walla Walla, Bird continued to confess to many crimes during his years of running the rail. The total was 44 murders, 11 of those with enough details to close those cases. Bird's first kills were 2 women in Evanston, Illinois in 1942. Other victims confirmed in Louisville, Kentucky, Omaha, Nebraska, Kansas City, Kansas, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Cleveland, Ohio, Orlando, Florida, and Portage, Wisconsin. He is also suspected to have murdered a woman in Houston, Texas. Almost 2 years later, on July 15, 1949, Bird was finally hanged, his body buried at the prison cemetery at Walla Walla Correctional Facility, with his grave marked with only his prison number, 21520. In 1909, Washington had 2 mental hospitals, and they were quickly becoming overcrowded. Instead of expanding the already existing facilities, the state built a 3rd institution. By 1911, Northern State officially opened its doors. The hospital was a self-sufficient facility with a number of production buildings, including a 700-acre farm. It quickly became the largest asylum in the state. Northern State treated their patients with occupational therapy with the belief that physical labor would help with their recovery, although they would also use some of the more unethical treatments like electroshock therapy and lobotomies. They were also known to use forced sterilization, following a century-old belief that treatment was not only for their own good, but society's as well. By 1953, the hospital housed over 2,000 patients in 33 wards and was almost filled to capacity. The total number believed to have died here is said to be in the thousands. Behind the gymnasium is a graveyard full of unmarked graves, which is now overgrown. The hospital closed its doors in 1973, and the property was handed over to the county, who turned it into a recreational area. Some parts are still used for the Job Corps, while other buildings are open for the public to explore. According to legends, there is a prankster ghost named Fred who is known to toss sheets and bedpans. Also reported is the apparition of a little girl with a red ball and a man looking for her, and a nurse hanging from a noose. Cold spots, along with other anomalies, have also been reported. The site has also been featured on an episode of Ghost Hunters. Maltby Cemetery has many urban legends associated with it, but the 13 Steps to Hell is the most popular. Near the town of Maltby sits a cemetery with gravestones that date back to 1908, and according to legends, it is also the place where a haunted staircase that begins at ground level extends 13 steps into the ground. The steps reportedly lead to the crypt of a wealthy family that were known to practice Satanism and other occult activities. According to legends, as you descend down the staircase one step at a time, you can feel the deathly silence enveloping you. With each step you take, you start to see your life flash before your eyes. Finally, you reach the bottom and you feel a little relieved. That is until you turn around and find you are no longer in the cemetery, but in hell. Some people have been so traumatized that they were left unable to speak. Rumors say the steps have now been covered up or filled in, and no trespassing signs cover the cemetery to discourage people from trying to find them. Oxford Saloon in historic Snohomish was built in 1900 and for decades was the black men's dry goods store. The building eventually was turned into a saloon, but through the years, as it changed owners and uses, each owner incorporated Oxford in its name. When it was remodeled as a saloon, the owners added a lobby next to the entrance with a stairway leading to several rooms on the second floor. It is believed these rooms were boarding house rooms that a local businesswoman, Kathleen or Catherine, rented and used the rooms as a high-class bordello. Even though she didn't go to the saloon, she did keep an office at the local Eagles Lodge where she made reservations for her high-class clientele. Through the years, Oxford Saloon was often the scene of violence, especially around the basement, men's room, and bar. This is the location of a well-documented killing of a policeman. Henry, the policeman, was a regular at Oxford Saloon, and it is believed that he was also moonlighting as a bouncer. One night there was a fight and Henry tried to break it up and was stabbed to death. It seems Henry stuck around and enjoys his ghosthood. He is reported to hang around the stairs to the basement and has been seen in the women's bathroom. Henry has been reported to not only be seen, but to pinch women here. He always disappears when confronted. Even though the second floor is rented out to offices today, at least 3 ghosts seem to have remained. One man is reported to be seen in a bowler hat and the other two are women, with many believing one is Kathleen. She is reported to be an older woman with a purple dress and purple bows. The other woman is reported to be Amelia, one of Kathleen's girls who had been forced into prostitution. Her body was found curled up in a closet. No one is sure if she committed suicide or was murdered. Pike Place Market has been a fixture in Seattle since 1907 and has become a famous tourist attraction. Although it became run down in the 1960s, it was revived in the 1970s and is as popular as ever. The living are not the only people to visit the market. There are several spirits said to haunt Pike Place Market, with the most famous being Princess Angeline. Princess Angeline was the oldest daughter of Chief Seattle, a Duwamish native leader that the city of Seattle was named for. She lived in a small cabin where the market is today. When the government told the Duwamish in 1855 that they would have to move to a reservation, Princess Angeline ignored them and continued to live in her cabin until her death of natural causes in 1896. During the last years of her life, she was often seen slowly walking around the city with her cane, making a living selling hand-woven baskets and doing laundry for people. She was a very popular woman, and when she died, the city gave her a very nice funeral. Today, her grave can still be found at Lakeview Cemetery. Without realizing it, Princess Angeline became famous when a photographer, Edward S. Curtis, took an interest in her, often taking pictures of her and paying Princess Angeline $1 for each picture. When she died, everybody was sad to see her go, but it wasn't long before it became apparent she didn't go far after all. The Pike Place Market opened in 1907, and Princess Angeline has been reported to be seen in the market since. Reports say she appears as a real, solid living person, an old Native American woman wearing an old-fashioned shawl and red bonnet. She moves slowly and has a disturbing habit of vanishing into thin air. She is most often seen near a wooden column on the lower floor of the market. Even when she's not visible, people have reported that the air around the pillar is colder than anywhere else in the market. Princess Angeline has also been reported at the flower market in another part of Pike Place complex, which is said to be where her cabin stood. She is often seen sitting on the floor, surrounded by blankets and baskets, like she was running her own stall. When she is approached by someone looking to buy something, she vanishes. The story of Hahn Mansion begins in the silver mines of Montana and ends in a seating boarding house in Spokane. It's a tale of money, divorce, death, and murder. On September 5, 1908, the president and largest shareholder of a silver mining company in Montana died, leaving his fortune to his recently wed wife, Sarah. Sarah and her new husband spent $75,000 in 1916 to build the sprawling mansion on Spokane's South Hill. Not long after completion, Sarah divorced her husband and sold the home in 1918 to a pharmacist who only stayed there a short time before selling in 1924 to Randolph Hahn. This is where things really start to get dark. Hahn started his life as a painter and barber and was married to Annie Tico in 1885. The 1910 census listed Hahn and his wife with 5 children and were living in a home on Washington Street. His occupation was listed as X-ray specialist. By the 1920 census, it listed Hahn, 53, now married to 21-year-old Sylvia Fly. There was no mention of Annie and the children. The census also listed his occupation as physician engaged in private practice. Hahn never attended medical school, but began making a fortune as a doctor. His specialty involved electrotherapy to cure a variety of ailments, as well as performing illegal abortions for his wealthy clients. Some of the improvements he is reported to have made to the mansion include the addition of secret passageways to help maintain the anonymity of the clients, as well as gutters carved into the floor of the basement to help with draining blood from his operating room. Hahn started earning a reputation as an eccentric partier. Reports describe him as appearing well-dressed, but wearing slippers. During Prohibition, his residence was known for wild, alcohol-fueled parties. Given Hahn's guest list of the rich and famous of Spokane, it seems the police generally turned a blind eye towards his antics. Hahn's relationship with his wife Sylvia was also rocky. Many witnesses reported heated arguments between them, and one time Hahn suffered broken ribs. The couple divorced for a time, but remarried on June 8, 1933. Finally, their rocky relationship came to an end on May 2, 1940, after a particular violent argument. Sylvia was found dead in her bedroom with a bullet wound to her head. Despite the official ruling of suicide, multiple other bullet holes were found in the bedroom wall, which Hahn claimed were from his bouts of indoor target practice, and the officials believed him. Hahn continued his party lifestyle and illegal abortions for several years after Sylvia's death, until one of his patients died on the operating table. Although he escaped similar charges in the past, this time he wasn't so lucky. Hahn was convicted of manslaughter in 1945. He received a $1,000 fine and probation for the conviction, which destroyed his reputation and ended his medical career. Hahn sold the mansion and moved into a rooming house in downtown Spokane. He finally met his fate on August 6, 1946, when he was attacked and stabbed through the heart by a traveling hearing aid salesman in a robbery gone wrong. But many people believed it was an act of revenge for a botched procedure carried out on the man's wife by Hahn years before. Reports from the Hahn mansion claim that through the years the sounds of crowds partying, loud arguments, shrieks from former patients, gunshots, and even a figure of a woman appearing on the staircase have been witnessed. Greenwood Memorial Terrace Cemetery was founded in 1888. The cemetery is resting place for many veterans, including those of the Spanish-American War and Civil War. It is also the final resting place of 2 Medal of Honor recipients and several of Spokane's pioneers, including the founder of the city, James N. Glover. According to legends, it is also home to some creepy happenings. Legends say there is an old staircase in Greenwood Cemetery that is a little more than haunted. It is reported that if you walk the staircase without any lights on, you will see the faces of men, women, and children. When you reach the top, you will hear the shrieks and cries of the dead, as well as feel something like rain on your skin. The staircase is rumored to have been the site of satanic rituals and is now referred to as the 1,000 Steps because nobody can make it to the top. The staircase is located on private property with regular security and police patrol in the area. Ezra Meeker, known on the Oregon Trail as the Hop King of the World, and his wife Eliza were pioneers that settled near Puyallup, Washington in 1862. Construction of their mansion began in 1886 and was completed in 1890. Today, it is a Puyallup landmark and has been restored. After the Meekers died, they left their house to their daughters. In 1912, it was leased to serve as a hospital, which didn't last long before becoming a home for orphans and widows. By 1948, the building needed a major restoration and was sold and became a nursing home. The current owner is the Puyallup Historical Society, who still operates a museum here and has been restored back to its original state. According to legends, Meeker Mansion holds many restless spirits. There have been many sightings of the founder's spirits, sometimes appearing realistic and other times phantom figures. There are also reports of overwhelming perfume smells that take over suddenly. This is believed to be the presence of Eliza Meeker passing by. Auburn dates all the way back to 1891 and is one of the oldest cities in Washington. Originally, Auburn was called Slaughter, a name meant to honor William Slaughter, an Army lieutenant who died in an 1855 battle with the local Native Americans. Back in the time Auburn was known as Slaughter, a wealthy landowner sold property that is now the town. According to legends, he still wanders the streets at night, particularly A Street, and he has no face. The faceless roamer is said to appear angry and walk through walls, scaring people. No one knows why he is so angry or why he has no face, but some say it's because he is unhappy with the way his land has been used, while others say he just enjoys scaring people. Just north of Prosser, on North Crosby Road, is a hill that is located near an old haunted grain elevator that defies the laws of gravity. The starting point has been marked on the road. When you get to this point, you are to stop your vehicle and put it in neutral. When you take your foot off the brake, your vehicle will then begin to roll uphill towards that eerie old grain elevator. The creepiest part, according to legends, is if you put dirt or flour on the back of your vehicle, when you check, there will be small, child-sized handprints of the ghost children who are pushing you uphill.